Hello, 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 everyone. I'm Elisha, and you're watching Elisha TV. Bijou is off chewing a box somewhere, but lucky for you, we have someone who has much more to say than my cat. Everyone, I would like to introduce you to Anarkya Miller. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hey everyone. Um, yes, my name is Anarkya Miller. uh, I do a YouTube channel discussing the liberty movement and self-sufficiency and individualism.
Excellent. And I really, really like her videos, so if you haven't yet checked her out, please go do that after this is done, of course. Um, we are currently not able to view the live chat for this stream, and none of the chat will be saved at the end. So if you have any questions or any comments whatsoever, leave them in the comment section after this video is saved. Tonight, I wanted to talk for an hour about many, many things pertaining to you growing up Mormon. How about we start with some of the positive things that you experienced, whether it be in your childhood or teen years, that pertain to being Mormon and the Mormon lifestyle?
Okay. Well, one of the great things about growing up Mormon is that they really emphasize the family, particularly the nuclear family, which we see now in today's society. The nuclear family has been broken up, and so family life for me was really stable. I know a lot of millennials don't get to say that. Once I kind of got to know, once I went to college and got to talk to people who lived outside of Utah, you know, divorce was fairly common, even though my parents divorced later. But most of my childhood, my family was very stable. Um, they're
Yeah.
also Mormons are very self sufficient, and they inherently are against government intervention, which I think is a positive. So
Which is that's more of the libertarian standpoint, and I realized when I was doing my research for this that Mormons are primarily, I think it was somewhere around 65% of Mormons overall vote conservative, and there's only about 18% who vote liberal, and the rest is kind of more like libertarian. So
yeah.
that is very interesting. Quick thing, I've come from a divorced household as well, and my parents still are on very good speaking terms, but I know what you mean by just the family environment that kind of has seemed to crumble over the last 25, 30 years. Divorces seem much more common, and I know that that's actually something that is not exactly an option in Mormon households. Is that correct? What happens if someone gets divorced?
Well, it's there's it's very strongly discouraged, and usually, especially in Utah, a lot of the Mormon values are reflected in the law, but I think you're required to go to however many years of counseling.
Hmm.
Well, I don't know if it's years, but you have to go through quite a bit of marriage counseling before you can just get divorced.
Okay. I mean, that honestly seems like a really good way to do things. But it's one of those free will. Would you look at that as a positive or a negative?
I like I see it as kind of I know it's a good thing for parents to try and work things out for the family, but I am very much like government shouldn't intervene and prevent you from making a decision that you want to make. Which in divorce, sometimes that is the right decision
Yeah,
for some
I mean
people.
there are many cases where it is, but that's good. I did notice that there was a very strong family connection. Um, Anything else in particular that you would say was a really big positive thing for you that you thought this is a really really good religion to be a part of, good family value? Anything else in particular?
Well, kind of going along the lines with divorce, one thing I did notice was that when parents did get divorced, like mine, both parents are very focused around their children. I mean, they're very raising their children is everything to them. So there wasn't a whole lot of one parent denying access to the other, because they both had this fundamental value of, okay, well, the kids need a father and the kids need a mother.
Exactly.
I've seen a lot of horror stories with other, um, with other millennials about parents trying to be very vindictive to each other. I'm not saying
Oh
people in
yeah.
the church weren't like that either, but
True.
the whole like, oh, you don't need a father, or you don't need, yeah.
Yeah, and that's
um,
just a negative thing to do to children in general, no matter what religious background or non-religious background.
and like with other Christian religions, the religion is a, I love using the word now because it will instantly trigger people, but it's a patriarchal system.
Ooh, patriarchal. Yeah, and I did notice that fathers were at the head of the household, and it was very much a straightforward. Now, why don't you enlighten everyone and explain that you did not have six moms? You were not part of the
Yes.
polygamous side.
Yeah, let's get that out of the way. At the very beginning of the LDS church, polygamy was a thing. Now it's not, for many reasons, but uh, the main LDS church is not polygamist. I only had one mom,
That's
and yeah, and I didn't have like 20 siblings. I had three.
okay.
So,
Fairly normal.
fairly, well, normal for, I mean, most Mormon families still have like 8 children, that fairly, like, really high numbers. But yeah, so there is, I guess we'll talk about this a little bit later about the FLDS church,
Yeah.
another
Let's clear up
domination.
for people. Let's clear up for people who don't know what the church is formally recognized as instead of the acronym. It is
Oh,
the
the
Church of
Mormon.
Latter-day Saints, correct?
Yes. Yeah, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Yes.
Okay. So now that we've touched on some of the positive things relating to marriage, anything in particular in relation to holidays? Any special holidays that only Mormons celebrate?
Only Mormons. Well, they do celebrate all the Christian holidays. Standard Christian holidays. Well, not all of them. As far as like fasting goes, the first Sunday of every month is Fast Sunday, which basically you just fast for 24 hours.
Okay.
Um,
So
Other
pretty
than
standard.
that, yeah, pretty standard.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know it was a denomination of Christianity, and basically they believe all of the same things. Um, Before we get on to what Mormons believe in, for example, the afterlife, let's talk about, I don't know, what are some negative things that you had experienced in your younger years, or even in your teens, where you just thought, if I wasn't Mormon, I wouldn't have this problem, for example, where you almost
Mhm.
blamed your religion for whatever stressful thing was going on in your life. Do tell.
Yeah. Well, I think one negative thing, and maybe this is just, some people can will parent a different way, and I'm not blaming my parents particularly because the religion encourages this kind of parenting, but there were a lot of things that were just considered taboo, and you weren't really given an explanation as to why, which if you were given the explanation, like more of a pragmatic reason why something's bad for you, maybe it would be less appealing you know to kids. But uh for example, we weren't really told why things like coffee and tea and caffeine, we weren't told there's something called the word of wisdom, which is basically things that you shouldn't be putting into your body.
Hmm.
Alcohol is one of them. They, instead of explaining why these things might be bad for you, it's just like the Lord said so, that you should not partake of these things. And so I couldn't settle for that. I mean, I maybe it's my personality. I like to question things. Like I need a good reason not to do something.
And I think that's the natural reaction to most teenagers, but I imagine even especially in religious households, like, oh, well why? Why? And I imagine Utah is not really heavily populated with Starbucks.
Not as much as other states, no.
Probably. Yes. No caffeine because the Lord said so. And I watched a common misconception about Mormons video, and one of the things said, "Oh, well, it's caffeine's fine as long as it's I apologize. Caffeine's fine as long as it's cold. It can't be a heated drink. So no hot tea, no hot coffee. Would
Oh
cold
yeah.
coffees be okay? Or pop, for example, or soda, whatever you call it down in Texas?"
Yeah, in a lot of Mormons, and I grew up drinking soda. Not a lot of soda, obviously, but uh, they seem to make an exception for soda for cold drinks. I don't know why it makes a difference if it's hot. I That was never explained, and I don't think it makes sense.
Because hot means it's from hell and cold means it's okay, I guess. I
But
don't know.
yeah, even at church events, when people are in charge of bringing refreshments, soda's available. So that's one of those things where some people are super strict about it. Others, you won't hear too many Mormons not drinking soda, but definitely no tobacco,
Yep, no alcohol
no
either.
alcohol. Yeah, no alcohol. Even wine, which
Hmm.
is interesting because, Christ drinks wine in the Bible, but
Only consume wine under our watch in very small portions on Sunday. Or is it Saturday? Which day is the day of rest?
it's Sunday. Sunday's
Okay.
the day of rest.
Okay.
Which
Um,
depending on how strict your Mormon household is, it's the Sabbath is the day of rest. So they'll say, it's the day of rest. You only go to church. You don't do any work that day. Some people will say they don't spend any money on Sunday, so they don't go out to eat. Others justify it as saying, well, I'm not doing any work by cooking the food, so I'm going somewhere else to eat. That's what my
fair.
family did, and I was happy with that. So,
Now pertaining to oh things like holidays. I'm gonna jump back to that really quick. What about Halloween or things that certain branches of Christianity think that that's not really the best type of thing to celebrate? What did your family do about that?
the church community itself they didn't really pay attention to Halloween so much. They didn't really say, "Oh, this is evil" or anything, but they didn't pay attention to it. And Mormon families, they enjoy trick or treating. I mean, they didn't, just for the trick or treating aspect, I guess.
Okay, fair enough. And oh, any other negatives? Because I did see something that was a bit peculiar. A certain kind of undergarments. Chastity underpants. I wish I could bring a picture up right now and show you all. Maybe I'll put it in the thumbnail for this when this is
Yeah.
up.
uh, yeah, they're called undergarments. And what happens is once you get married in the temple, you get these undergarments that you now have to wear, which basically shows your commitment to modesty for your partner. Uh, so usually you're supposed to wear them all the time unless you're trying to have a baby, because that's what sex is for in Mormon religion. It's, reproduce. But anyway, you wear it otherwise. If but and it's usually a certain, like, the shorts are usually a certain length, which usually means, especially as a woman, to be modest, you can't wear anything shorter than what your garments are. And the same with the top, don't wear any sleeveless shirts so that your garments would show. But I don't think a lot of Mormons even especially the younger generation that have gotten married, I don't think they follow that very strictly because obviously I'll see pictures of them in bathing suits. But somehow
Where's your
you
naughty underpants? Where are your naughty pants? I need to see those. There's a little too much skin showing. Um, oh, let's see here. I have a couple things I wrote down that I really thought was important to touch on. Oh, where should we start? Dating. That
yeah.
is one thing that I was curious about. Is it more like a courtship, or can you just willingly go on dates like you would at any other point in time?
Uh, the standard age that parents will let their kids start dating is 16.
Okay.
And so it's pretty reasonable. I think that's actually standard for other people too. Um, very very strict on dating. um, super super strict. In fact, I remember getting, I don't know, there's a couple times a year where your bishop will pull you in as like a youth and be like, he'll ask you very specifically. He'll try to almost say it in a not to be an appropriate way, but he'll ask you specifics on your behaviors when you're going out to date. Basically asking you, are you touching the person that you're dating? And, like they're very strict. No sexual contact is supposed to be had until after you're married for Mormons. So kissing is very, very discouraged until you're an adult and you can, I guess the reasoning is until you're an adult and you can stop yourself from going further. So
Learn some self control, children. Are you touching her and her no no parts? I didn't think so. Do they pull out the police flashlight and shine it? Where did you put your hand, sir?
but they do encourage the youth to start dating because their big thing is well, they want you to get married early so that you can start having kids early. That's Mormons are known to get married early and then start having kids really early.
Yes, and
So,
having a lot of them is what
and
I've.
having a lot of them, yes. So you have to start
Yes.
early.
Now, on the religious aspect of the not crazy sect of Mormonism, the normal ones, there is a belief that I found to be quite interesting about different levels of heaven. Different, was it levels of glory?
It was,
Celestial, celestial.
yeah, there's three kingdoms of glory and then there's hell. They call it something else like partition or something like that. They don't call it hell, but it's hell.
It was something that started with the P. I remember. Celestial. What is the difference between that and telestial? From my understanding, it's kind of like one's for Mormons and one's for the second group of Christians. It's everybody else.
Yeah, so the difference is celestial is you were a wonderful human being when you were on earth and you accepted the gospel, the Mormon gospel, basically. So now you get to be like God. You get to make your own planets and you basically get to be a god as a reward or as a result.
That sounds
So
fun.
I
I
know.
mean, the
They
God, the
make
God part, nothing else.
yeah. They make it sound very appealing. Um you get to make your own worlds and yeah, stuff like that. So
Interesting. Very interesting.
yeah, telestial are those who are wonderful human beings, but they didn't accept the gospel, or they didn't get a chance to. Which there's usually a period after death where you're given the chance to learn about it, apparently, and then based on your decision, you'll get placed in one of those kingdoms.
Okay, very
So,
interesting. With like
so
different
like you
levels.
said, other Christians basically that just didn't accept that particular gospel.
Very interesting. Thank you for that elaborate description because I was like, I think I have the basis of it, but I needed a little bit more. I already asked that. Yes, the temporary hell and permanent hell. That was another thing. Was that kind of the time where you would learn about being better? Is that the temporary hell, or is that something totally different?
Yeah, I think that's what's being referenced, is that that temporary place isn't necessarily supposed to be comfortable. I guess not like a great place to be. So I guess that's why it's kind of like a temporary hell.
Okay.
Uh, yeah,
So like a really, really, really long bad work day, just temporary hell.
yeah, where you're being slammed with all this stuff that you either didn't learn about when you were on Earth, and they're like, oh yeah, by the way, this was the real gospel. So read this book, and then at the end of the day, we'll give you a test, and if you pass, I don't know. I'm being a little sarcastic, but
Well, I mean, shoot, if that's the case, I'll get there someday and I'll just say, look, I'm not really good at taking tests. Is there math on this? I can't do math. um, the church, which name escapes me, but I think it is the Mormon church in Utah. What is that called and what is that like? It is massive.
the temple.
Yes.
Yeah. So what's interesting about the temple is that most of it you're not able to go in. You're only I think you're only able to go into one room if you're not married in the temple. So to access the rest of the temple, you have to be married inside the temple and if you have to be worthy, you have to have all these interviews and show that you haven't had sex before marriage and all this stuff. So I've never been inside, obviously, with some of the stuff, and they
Hmm.
keep it very private, obviously. They don't allow cell phones in there, and so it's not like there's a lot of pictures you can find on the internet. I think they're very, very strict about that.
Yes,
That
I did.
it's only for those who are worthy, the special people. So, but they do have this room where you do baptisms for the dead.
Yes, I wanted to ask you about that
Yeah.
next. I was getting ahead of myself. I was like, ooh, and they had this pool that had bulls. It looked like bull statues going all the way around the outside. What
Mhm.
is this pool for?
So what it's for, I honestly can't remember what the bulls symbolize. I It's some reference to the Bible, something some prophet did. I don't know.
He
But
rode a bull.
yeah, so I always thought it symbolized, the something to do with the pilgrims coming across the plains or something. But
Yes,
anyway,
that actually makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
but so what this pool is, the baptism for the dead. So basically, I think you have to be baptized in the church to do this, which you have to be 8 years old to be baptized into the church. So once you're a member of the church, you can volunteer yourself to be baptized for people that are dead. So basically, the whole dunking in the water, you're basically taking the place of these names that they pull up that have never been converted to the church. So the thinking is, that temporary hell we were talking about.
Hmm.
Some of those people are waiting in there until they are officially baptized into the church. And so you're doing the ceremony for them so that you'll basically go into the water. I did it a couple times. Uh, they'll read off the name instead of reading your name. They'll read off someone else's name. Then they'll dunk you under the water, and someone in the temporary hell now has a choice.
Now, would this be names of people who were willingly put on this list? or are they names of people that they get records of people who died, whether it be in the area or just in the country or in the world even?
That's the controversial part. um, I don't think they get people's permission or family permission. I think they just get records of people. I think they try and start with family members that have passed of, Mormon, their ancestors first.
Okay.
But
Very
I know you can go to them if you think you have an ancestor and you want one of your ancestors to be baptized and you're not sure if they have. You can bring their name in and then ask, can I be baptized for my ancestor or whatever. But they don't get permission.
interesting. Now, speaking of that, there were where was I going with this? Oh man. With the baptisms and ancestry, I remember learning yesterday that ancestry.com is actually a Mormon organization. They created ancestry.com.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool. So
Yeah,
they
that.
have my name. Someday that
Ooh.
they will find you'll hear people being baptized for dead Elisha. Hopefully I'm like 97 years old and crippled and senile.
Yeah, that's one thing that's really cool about the Mormon Church is that they are very diligent about uh ancestry. Like about, getting the records, finding information about your ancestry. I think it's important because I think especially as Americans, well, and people in Europe too, we're so out of touch with where our ancestors came from. And again, the Mormon church is centered around the family. And so it's very important to have these records. And they're big on journalism too, of, trying to maintain records. They encourage their members to have a journal, basically, so that they can pass it on to their family members and they have their own copy of history, basically.
Nice. Now there are many instances where I hear of missionary work. Now, is that something? When I learned it, it was mostly. It seems like it was mostly young men who were doing it. Did ladies get to do it too?
Yeah. So originally, this wasn't always the case, but originally, missionary work was for young men. They would go once they turned 19, 19 years old. I think they've just recently changed the age actually to 18, so you can go right after you graduate high school, was the reason why.
Nice.
And so these young men, you don't have to, but it's basically one of those things where you will be shunned from future partners if they found out you didn't go on a mission. So at 19 years old, you take 2 years of your life to go on a mission, and it can be. I have friends who went on a mission that are no longer members of the church either, but they tell me that they do not regret going on a mission simply because you don't get a choice where you go. I don't know how they decide this. You basically get a letter and you can accept it or not. They say, you're called on the blank mission, which is someplace in the world they're going to send you. And if it's another country, then you get to learn another language. I think you go somewhere for 2 months where they teach you that language, like they fast track teaching you that language, and then you get
Oh
shipped
wow.
out. So yeah, I mean, and for a lot of these boys, especially, our generations, are kind of sheltered from the real world. They learn a lot about the real world because it's their first time getting away from their family. So I've heard a lot of friends that are no longer Mormons say that they liked their mission for that reason. As long as you go to
Did
a
you
cool
ever
place.
get to?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah. So
Um,
what? Oh yeah, you asked if girls could go. Um,
yes.
Originally they didn't want women to go. the reason was they want you to get married and have babies very soon. So, but they want the men to mature, so they send them off to, because the patriarchy, they have the power to convert people, whatever.
Oh, patriarchy. The good old patriarchy.
But women can go. I think women can go. It used to be they had to wait till they were 21 because they basically were like, okay, if you're not married by the age of 21, then maybe you could do something useful and go on a mission. That's how I interpret. I know that sounds harsh, but I think that's why
Hey.
they gave in. And but I think now girls can go when they're 19 because I've seen a lot of girls right after high school go on a mission. So
Now, the ultimate question. Why did you choose to leave?
there were many reasons, and I honestly like. Well, okay, so first reason, I'm not a big fan of organized religion. I didn't have anything against a lot of the values that the church taught and the principles, but I you're gonna laugh because now we make fun of social justice warriors and feminism. But during that time, I was just going to college and I was tired of being told my entire life, that I had to fit this very specific gender role. And I was a tomboy growing up, and I was like, oh, I hate the church. I hate these stupid gender roles. And then, boom, feminism happens in college. And I'm like, oh, I definitely can't be a part of this religion anymore.
So, wait, is this the first documented point in modern history that third wave feminism actually did some good for someone?
Yeah, it might be. The irony is, there's a lot of really bitter feminists in Utah for that reason because they grew up Mormon. They
Oh,
actually had a legitimate kind of like, you know, I didn't get to be an individual, I had to fit this gender role. But that's not entirely true either. I mean, the church doesn't force you to do whatever, but they encourage the family unit, which gender roles are important to the family unit. So, but yeah, I didn't
that.
like that. And I got mad about the history, Mormon history. Uh, Also, racism was one of the reasons I got mad because they didn't allow blacks to hold the priesthood for a very long time until
Hmm.
I don't know for sure, but it took a long time for blacks to be able to convert to the church and for black men to hold the priesthood. They couldn't do that.
I'm just going to say I agree with you. That's a little bit racist. Just saying.
Yeah, it was
That's interesting.
yeah, it was legitimately racist. So at the time, going into college, and I finally, and a lot of it too was that I was, I hate to use the word forced, but I was forced to go to church. I didn't really get a choice. And that made me really bitter. And I think that makes people really bitter when they don't have the choice whether or not to do something. And I understand as a kid, the reasoning is, well, your brain isn't fully developed. You don't know what decisions are good for you, so you need to deter decision making to your parents. So my parents did what they thought was best for me. I understand, but I didn't like feeling forced, and the church felt more tyrannical than it really was.
Very, very good way of putting it. And like we had mentioned earlier, there are so many things that kids just want to rebel and rebel. Uh, you said you were probably in college, so early 20s is
Yeah.
about when you decided, okay, can't take it anymore. I got to do something. Now, you're currently engaged to someone who is not a Mormon, so that is you branching out, and I'm very, very, very happy for you. And I hope that everything goes well and you have a wonderful wedding whenever that is.
Oh
We're
yeah.
both engaged, actually, both of us at the same time. Woo! But marriage is very important, and I think marriage is sacred, and I would have to say that you also think that.
Yes, I do think marriage is very important. Um, And one thing I really did appreciate about the Mormon church is they do make that commitment. That commitment is very serious, which is why divorce is really difficult if you're in the church. But yeah, we already went over that earlier.
But those are all very very important things. So your particular sect was good. There was not really any excessive amount of, shall we say, cult-like behavior. There was the little bit of, oh, here we have to go to church, we have to do these things, don't drink coffee. But the FLDS in Colorado, is it Colorado City?
Yeah, Colorado City.
That is a very small group of Mormons who remind me of the Amish.
They are very similar to the Amish. Um, the one thing that is dangerous about that section of Mormonism is that, from what I've been told, and you can tell when you drive through, they close off their community to the point where kids don't seem to really know the world outside of their small community. And so, and I don't think they're really given a choice whether or not to be baptized, or they're not really given a choice of whether or not to stay in the church, basically. If, if you're not part of the religion, I'm not saying everyone in that small town is FLDS, but you'll get booted from your community fairly quickly. if
Yeah, I learned there are some children there who don't even get past elementary school, and some don't even know how to read.
Mhm. And I admire homeschooling for many reasons, but um, one thing about Mormon parenting, not particularly FLDS parenting, but normal Mormon parenting,
Mm.
is they're very involved in their kids' education. So public schools in Utah were very, I assume they're a little better than the rest of the country because parents really are very strict about their role. They don't just let the government come in and dictate what. They'll be very vocal about what they want their kids to be learning, and if they feel like their kids are being indoctrinated.
That is something that I think is happening in many schools across the country right now is indoctrination. And that could be a whole other live stream. The indoctrination of children.
Oh yeah,
But
but with
go on.
the FLDS, the other problem that arises, because they do practice polygamy, is that the whole system revolves around there being more women than men. Obviously, each family unit, there's more wives. There's one husband and then multiple wives. So they run into this problem where a lot of these young boys end up getting booted from the community, even if they didn't do anything wrong, because, well, they're competition for the other guys in the community that want multiple wives. And so I was reading something that a lot of these kids end up going to St. George, which is a town in southern Utah.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of these kids, they've, you know, their entire lives were their family up until, you know, they got abandoned by their family and kicked out. And so there's, I've heard there's some major drug issues with a lot of those boys because they don't have a family. They weren't taught anything else. They got thrown into a world they knew nothing about because their community was so closed off that they end up doing drugs and they don't know how to make their own decisions. And
Yeah, so the documentary that I watched last night, it almost made me cry because there was a 17-year-old boy who his whole family was basically ripped apart. He went and he was excommunicated and he went and lived with another family outside of this Colorado city. And his mother and his three younger sisters, they were banished out and their father was banished, but he decided to go back and therefore the father was never allowed to have contact with the family then on. And the 17-year-old, he had never learned how to read, so he was reading at a first grade reading level at 17, and he had never been able to learn about the world, and he was like, I'm so excited to be able to go and ride my bike and do all of these things and play basketball and meet friends. It was very, very shocking, but very interesting.
Yeah, that's it. What's really sad about that is they close off their community to the point where they actually, I think, purposely don't want them to learn how to read as well. I would assume because, if they could learn how to read, then they would be able to read stuff, content outside of what they teach. And then that would cause them to question, which is interesting because the LDS church, going back to uh, how it was founded with Joseph Smith, the whole church was founded on supposedly one boy questioning what was already in existence with the other Christian religions. And so he did his research. He read about other religions, and then he prayed about it, and then supposedly that's when God decided to reveal the truth to this one kid. And so the foundation is questioning and educating yourself, which I think is a positive thing. And most Mormons really do appreciate, they really do appreciate freedom of speech. I mean, for whatever reason, they're super offended by swearing.
Oh boy. Go
but
figure, huh?
but they do like to educate themselves on the rest of the world. And you see this when they encourage, because they do this to encourage missionaries to be able to blend in with other cultures enough, just enough, so that they can, kind of sell them their version of the gospel, basically. So,
Very interesting. Well, I'm having a slight bit of technical difficulties. My phone, which I'm using to film, will not stay plugged in, and my battery is rapidly dying.
oh no.
So I apologize, but honestly, we could go on for 3 or 4 hours about this. But so far, your story, I mean, it made me research more things, and I've learned things just by meeting you and being your friend. So I really, really thank you for that.
Yeah,
It's
of
been
course.
it's been really awesome having you here.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and just so everyone knows, the South Park episode, there's I think it's hilarious because it's true. I mean, a lot of of course, they do it in a joking manner, but if you want like a quick history of how the Mormon Church was found, South Park episode is pretty good.
I still haven't watched it, but I actually might do that as soon as we're done with this.
You should. It's hilarious. It's good. And what's awesome is that when the creators of South Park, Trey Parker and Matthew Stone. Wait, is that his name?
That I actually don't know.
But yeah. So anyway, the creators they said that they don't they know a lot about the Mormon Church because they had neighbors that were Mormon, and they're like, we don't poke fun because we thought the Mormon Church was entirely stupid. We appreciate their family values. And at the end of the episode, it actually shows the kids like wishing their parents were more family oriented. It's actually pretty funny. But they do make fun of how the church was founded and some of the stupid petty rules that they have. But,
Gotta love South Park for its blunt, brutal honesty.
mm-hmm. They don't discriminate.
Well, yeah, against anybody. No, we're making fun of all of you. That and The Simpsons and Family Guy. 3 shows that I'm surprised have not been booted off air due to social justice warriors.
I know. I'm surprised.
Big surprise. But it was. Why are you telling me low power mode again? My phone, I swear to you. But I wanted to give one quick shout out before we end up wrapping up. And that is going to be that my friend Lauren, who is a liberal, gave me her laptop to borrow since mine is trash so we could do this live stream. So big thank you to Lauren, and thank you to you, Anarkya. I appreciate you being here with us today. Sorry my camera shut off on you guys, but I hope that we can do many, many things in the future together. You're really awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me on. And any of the viewers that came here from my channel, please like and subscribe to Elisha. She has a lot of really good content on here.
Thank you very much. And same, likewise for you, any of my viewers, please go check her out. If you like anything that is true hardcore American, libertarian, conservative, guns, cultural, any of those things, you will find a video that will suit your interest on Anarkya's channel. Links in the description. I'm gonna get up on out of here. So I hope you have a wonderful weekend, Anarkya, YouTube viewers. I love you guys very much, and thank you very much for tuning in tonight. Leave
Thank
any
you. All
comments below because my chat, I'm not able to read it. So go ahead and do that.
right. Thank you. All
You're welcome. Have a good one.
right. You too. Bye.
Bye. All right, everyone. Thank you very much for watching. We are going to wrap up right here. Please subscribe to my channel, subscribe to Anarkya's channel, and let's talk. Leave some comments below once this video is uploaded, and we are going to have a good old time like we usually do. Talk to you later, everyone.